Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is a USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats. And these are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all of the Porch Play Chats, and there's over 180 of them, on our website, our YouTube channel, and our Instagram page. So go to ipausa.org, in that top right-hand corner, follow us on Instagram, be a friend on our Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Meghan Goldman. Meghan, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
I love Meghan's story. Meghan is a mom of two spirited boys, and she learned how important a connection with nature is for a child's development. And now she wants to help all kids get connected to nature through play. Her first career, this is the part I love, was an engineer in commercial power plants. So Meghan is also very, very passionate about STEM skills. She's a big believer that free play, nature exploration, and child-led interaction in materials in the wild are some of the most important and powerful ways for children to learn and develop their love of STEM. It's also become clear to her that time playing in nature is one of the most effective ways to make sure kids grow up to be dedicated environmental stewards. With this in mind, Meghan works at a wildlife conservancy, Loudoun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, good. I got it right.
Yeah.
And to support programs for youth and families that focus on getting kids into nature spaces and allowing them the chance to connect with nature on their own terms and in their own ways. I mean, like, can you imagine that story? It's just amazing. So Meghan's topic today is how to stop hovering without losing your mind.
Yes.
I read that and I started cracking up because we hover like helicopters all the time.
I know. And so as a recovering hoverer, I feel like this topic is near and dear to my heart because I feel like as a parent or even as a program leader, it's just the culture is to hover. And so I've had to try and learn. I've had to try lots of times and learn lots of times how to stop hovering. In both a role as a parent and then also as a play professional, someone, not that professional is the right word to go.
No, I like play professional. It is
play worker.
Yeah.
In that role, I've had to learn how to stop hovering as well. So I get it, and I've been there, and I know it. But it is possible to move past the hovering stage.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, I guess we could talk about what hovering even is, although I'm pretty sure at this point, most everybody knows it's like that, the kind of staying within arm's reach or double arm's reach and kind of being over the shoulder of the kids as they're trying to get into their play groove. And I was trying to come up with an analogy. This is how, when I give talks to educators about play, I say, suppose you're trying to relax and get into the flow and you're taking a painting class or something in your local community center and you're not a painter, so you're kind of self-conscious. And then the painting teacher starts walking around and circulating while you're trying to paint a still life. And just that like looming sense of
lurking. I call it lurking. You're lurking.
And how impossible it would be for us as adults to get into the flow.
Mm-hmm. It's a great analogy.
And I just think that's exactly what happens as adults start circulating and during a time when it's supposed to be play.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't turn off your adultness, like you can't help but kind of impact the kids when you're there. And so just learning how to melt into the background is so important.
And not interfere, even though you don't mean to, because you're lurking.
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
distracting them
Yes.
from what they should be, what they want to do, right?
Yes.
Not what they should be doing. Yeah.
Because we're helping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was such a good helper for so long with my own children. And I didn't realize how miserable it was making all of us. We all got a lot happier when I stopped helping.
Mm,
And again, it's just like that art teacher example. You know, imagine that the teacher comes over to you and says, well, what do you think? Could you do, what if you did this? Wouldn't this be great? You know,
mm,
giving you, having a learning moment or something. And it
mm.
just, the way that that can interrupt your natural flow and your natural progression. It's, we need to stop.
Yeah. We need to stop and we need to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working out with these families in the conservancy, can you give us a little bit of what you're doing out there? And are the parents the hoverers who are with their children in the space? And how do we,
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to be able, I think, it's really interesting, Vygotsky tells us children have to enforce a rule on others before they can internalize the rule for themselves, right? So that's why you have children who tattletale.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher, he did blah, 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 teacher. And we look at it like, oh my God, here we go. No, they have to enforce that rule on someone else before they can internalize it. So if we can talk about how the parents are wanting to enforce a rule on other children before they can internalize it, and the hovering is a part of that, what can we do? How do you give us some ideas?
Okay. So I'll first talk about, I guess, the tricks that I use personally that I think in some sense, I serve as a model for the parents.
Yes.
For what to do. So they kind of, especially if it's a newer parent to one of my events and they've never been there before, when you've never been somewhere before, you kind of look to see how other people are behaving to take your cues. And so one thing that I do is I have a clipboard and I try to look busy. Oftentimes I'll be holding it like with this, and I may just be doodling, but just so that, and out of the corner of my eyes, I can see that the kids will be looking up to me and then looking away, to see if I'm looking at them. And I'm just trying to give them all kinds of signals that I'm not paying attention. I'm usually listening because I think they're so entertaining and fascinating to listen to. Or I'll take other things to do, like some type of like if my play supplies, let's say I have a bunch of ropes and they're all tangled up, I'll just take that along so I can sit down on the ground and just be untangling ropes. Just something to make me look occupied so that the kids don't feel that I'm there serving as some sort of oversight.
Yes.
And so with that in mind, putting out a few things for parents to play with can be helpful. So maybe it's just some sidewalk chalk and plywood boards that they can noodle with if you put it in a pile near. Sometimes I'll take a piece of cardboard and a Sharpie and write Parents Lounge on it and stick it on a stick in the ground to just kind of
space.
Yeah, create a space where they feel and it also sets the tone. Clearly this is a place where if I come with my kids, it's okay if I go hang out over here and kind of and drop out of the child carer role. So I'll put a few things there, a few prompts, and give them permission.
Well, I think what's so beautiful about that is sometimes people are afraid that you're going to judge them as parents if they don't hover.
Absolutely. And that's the big thing. It's the permission that a lot of the parents are looking for. So through the first few minutes when a new parent may get there, I may just start talking to them about, children's play and how important it is. and just let them know that it's okay if
Mhm.
they go off. And a lot of them are excited because they don't necessarily like being part of this culture,
Mhm.
but they don't want to be the first one who walks off and leaves their kid over there.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost a permission for them, so that they don't feel like they're going to be judged if they don't hover and
Yeah.
keep their child safe, right? I
Yeah.
think that is brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the parent lounge. I love it.
But I will tell you, I've also learned, just when you think you know what you're doing as a play worker, you learn more, right?
Uh-huh. All
So
right.
there are some parents who may come to my events and they're working all week. They barely get a chance to see their kid and they want to play with their kids
Mhm.
during that time too. So I think we also need to be mindful and flexible, to be able to understand that folks are coming with all sorts of needs
Right.
to play. And so just communicating with them and just serving them as best we can
Yeah.
for
Right.
whatever.
And so if they are parents who want to come and play with their children, I'm looking for my pen because where I'm wanting to add something to my, I always keep a notebook while I'm doing these, but I think one of my cats must have, oh, I found it. Okay, good. Um, I I think Calvin, to keep parents from hovering
Mhm.
when they want to be engaged with their children because they feel like they're not engaged, or again, I want to go back to that judging that we do to everybody, that they may feel like if they don't play, then they're not good parents.
Mhm.
And so how do you balance that with them if they are still hovering?
If they're hovering and they're trying to play or
Uh-huh.
wanting to play,
Uh-huh.
I start playing with the kids.
Okay.
Um, uh, and I don't even know if I'm, you know, conscious of it when it starts. But
Mhm.
usually, if I'm around a kid whose parent is wanting to engage and play, um, then I'll notice what the kid is doing and I'll start asking questions or joining in or, wondering questions like, whoa, look at that thing. Isn't that cool? What is that about? What's
Mhm.
going on? Or, hey, did you want this? Or, hey, did you need this? Or just having a lighthearted conversation and just start having fun.
Mhm.
And then it kind of, again, it sets the tone. It kind of starts letting everybody get comfortable, that we can be silly here and that there's no firm objectives. It's not like at some of the more structured parent-child activities where you're meant to create this craft in this way.
Yeah.
You feel like a failure if you're not able to
Do that.
yeah. So I think once they get the vibe, then things start falling into place and you just start hearing the giggles and people are having fun. It's just awesome.
So again, it's modeling, right? You're modeling if you want to be close and if you want to play,
Mhm.
here's the things that you could, here's some things that I'll model and hopefully you'll pick up on. But you're not saying to them, just ask an open-ended question. Right?
I know. No, and that's the hard part because at first when I finally learned to stop hovering and when I finally learned how important free play was, I had this tendency to just get really grumpy at all of the parents who weren't doing it or all of the teachers who weren't being receptive to play.
Mhm.
And then at some point, it's just like when you're trying to facilitate play for a kid who's having some sort of blockage or some sort of issue and isn't able to engage in play. As play workers, we're trained not to get mad at them, right? You're trained to ask questions and observe and see what's getting in their way and seeing if there's any way that you can help provide the materials or open up the space for them to do it. So I started asking the same questions for the adults. So
Mhm.
why is it that they're coming in here and wanting to micromanage their children?
Mhm.
And what is it that they need in order to let go?
Mhm.
And so that's been very helpful for my blood pressure during these
Uh-huh.
events, but also the results too. I mean, it just works. trying to tell a parent, stop micromanaging your child. That's not.
That's not the relationship building that you want to do.
No,
right?
and
To get them to hear.
It doesn't work.
Right. It doesn't work.
Because at the end of the day, until the parent starts playing, oftentimes they don't get it. They don't understand why the play is important. Right. Until they start putting their brain into that gear. And all of a sudden, they notice how relaxed they are. They notice how their mood is elevated at the end. They notice how they're connecting with the peers around them. And then they realize, oh, wait, and start transferring all of that onto their interpretations of what the kids are doing.
But they have to experience that before they can internalize that, right? So again, it goes back to the fascinating concept of play work and what play work actually does to support play and not interfere with play, but to be there and to not be, I don't think play workers are even facilitators. And you may, we're not facilitator. You're not, I wish I was a play worker. I need to take the training, but you're not facilitators of play. You're supporters of children's play, right? Is that the better way to describe it? That you're not there to direct their play, to guide their play, but you're there to support. If they say, hey, Miss Megan, we need more rope. You're okay.
Exactly.
Let me go get more rope for you.
Well, I don't even think of it as supporting the children's play. I think I'm supporting the space in which the children use to play. So I'm like holding the space. And that's oftentimes I'll think of myself, I'm holding the parents back and leaving this space as one in which they're free to play. The analogy that I use in my head, I use a lot of analogies, I'm noticing.
That's okay. I like them.
Is a lifeguard at a pool. Right. So they're there to keep the space safe and stocked for people to go swimming. You wouldn't expect the lifeguard when you show up at the community pool to give instructions to your child for what they should go do and how they should play in the shallow end versus the swimming lanes. That's not their job. That's not what they're there for. If you have questions, you're free to go up to them and ask them. And that's what I let the kids and the parents know at the beginning. If you need anything, let me know. I help with the supplies. I help with manual labor or fine motor skills. So if the kid's trying to tie a rope around a tree and it's there's too much rope and they need a piece cut, they ask me to do it. Or if they can't get the masking tape started, they'll come ask me to do it, and they'll say, get me some tape. So I'm not, it's kind of like when my husband helps me with projects around the house, he tells me that in order to save our marriage, he turns off his thinking mode and he just takes straight directions, right? So that we don't get into the arguments over this would be a better way, or this would be a better way. So when the kid comes up to me and says, here, I need some tape, I'll start the masking tape and I say, is this enough? How much tape do you want? Tell me when. I'm not doing any of the decision making for them.
That's beautiful. And so I want to talk about what it looks like when a group, and do you have repeaters who come? That's beautiful. So I want you to talk about first when a new family arrives and sort of I don't know how you introduce the space or the scope of what's going to take place, how long one visit might be. And then so I'd like you to do that with the initial first time family and child who are coming. And then I'd like you to talk about the repeaters and what you see different between the fur and the next, because again, we know repetition helps us learn more and more and more. And so I'm curious about that and how you see parents sort of let go.
Yeah. So when they first get there, I used to keep a sign out. I probably need to make a new one, because my signs are always made out of cardboard and Sharpies, so they don't last forever. So I probably need to get another one made up, and it says, welcome to Mud Club. And it says one rule. And the one rule is have as much fun as you can while trying not to hurt yourself or anybody else.
Oh, I like that.
And so that rule at the kind of the entrance to the area where the play occurs, that is very good at setting the tone. And then I have a bunch of loose parts that normally, I carry them in milk crates, and then we dump them in an area near the creek. And so I'll point out to them that there's a bunch of play parts, and feel free to help yourself. If you need anything, let me know. And so then they usually are like, the eyes get big and they're just start looking around.
You're not going to tell me where to go, what to do, who to play with? I mean, I can just see the confusion on their face.
But I just let them, and that's another one of those times when I kind of get my clipboard and wander away and pretend like I'm doing something, just to give them those few moments to stare off and think, what is going on here? And to, feel brave enough to start walking towards the parts. And then sometimes the parents will tag along to start looking at the parts too, oftentimes because they're curious, but sometimes to help, prompt the kids to do something. And at that point, I usually just start talking to the parents. So, to kind of,
what brought you here?
Yes.
It's your first time. And
yes, all of those questions. And then that gives the kid an opportunity to break free.
Yeah. And again, a lovely intervention without it being critical. Right. So just redirection. I just go back to what we do in classrooms. Redirection.
And I think it's 2 for 1, because I honestly do want to know more about them. I mean, it's a kind of community. It may be temporary and transient, but it's community. So I like getting to know them. And so I consider it a win-win.
Yeah. So it's like authentic. It's not, you're not performing. It's an authentic way of helping to redirect families and to ask them questions so that they're not hovering.
Yeah. And so what happens on repeaters, I would say, what I really like actually, when I have repeaters at the same site, because, I'll do these mud clubs, these nature play sessions at different green spaces in my community, but oftentimes we'll have the same families come to the same green space, right? So when you have a kid and the parents that come to that same green space, it's almost like they start exhibiting like a sense of ownership, like this is their space. Like, oh yeah, this is my space, this is my tree, this is where I always build my fort, it's awesome. It's almost like a confidence they have with dealing with this space. And I think the parents see that, and I think it gives them a sense of comfort that their kids are confident and capable and know what they're doing. And then I think the parents also, after a few sessions, have gotten the vibe of what the culture is. And so they're kind of like keepers of that culture as well. If you're coming back for these sessions, then clearly you think that there's some benefit in it and you like it. And so then you kind of take on part of the role of passing that along to the new parents that come along.
Nice. And so again, you have that reciprocal interaction with their children and that space, but then you also have them modeling for the new families who are coming in. All that is just amazing. How many green spaces do you have that you're using?
I have 2 or 3 that I use on a regular basis, just because sometimes it can get hard to find the trifecta, which is what I call close parking, bathrooms with flush toilets
Bathrooms.
for the
Yeah,
potty trainers,
right.
and a flowing water source like a creek
Mhm.
in the green space. So we have a few of those that are accessible, and that the owners, if it's not publicly owned, are happy to let us use. I know. And it's awesome. It's so much fun. And then the thing that I also love is, again, I'm talking about giving permission.
Mhm.
Once you have the families there and have an event where you're having the free play and the nature play, then they start coming back to that space when we don't necessarily have an event, because you've modeled, this is how you can play with nature and in this space. And so then they start coming back on their own, which then, you know, as more people see that space being used that way, I think it perpetuates pretty well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've heard, so I want you to think about what are my closing comments that I wanted to share with everyone. But what I have heard is that the work of a play worker is to support the space, and your redirection of families who are feeling uncomfortable about not hovering because maybe they'll be judged or maybe they're just very protective is a wonderful way to get families to talk about who they are as a family and to feel a part of a community. That you have children who may not have ever had the space to play without direction. And so you're acting busy is something I do in my classroom with college students when I'm trying to get them to play. I can't watch them play because they're self-conscious, because it's not, so I turn my back on them, have music playing, and have lots of stuff that they can choose to do. Loose parts are everywhere, and they can choose where to go, who to be with, and how long to stay there. But it is that act looking busy that is, I think, gives them permission and relaxes them to be able to investigate and explore materials. And that goes back to Walter Drew's and Marcia's book on helping adults learn to play again, right? Is that when I went through that play experience for the very first time, I was at an NAYC conference, and had always been a play person, but you walk into this room and it's filled with piles of loose parts all over the floor, and there are chairs around the perimeter, and they're introducing you to the play experience. And then, you know, after they've told you, you know, you're going to choose, some material's been calling to you, so walk slowly to that material, and if it's already been selected, choose a different one, right? So blah 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 blah. And then they put on music and they turn their backs to you. Nobody, and I mean, really, first time I did it, I kept looking at them to see, you know, if they were, and I played as a child all the time. I kept looking to see if they were gonna, you know, no, okay. And then I kind of looked around at what other people were doing, and like, okay. And it took me probably 10 minutes to not think I had to do something or make something or someone was going to tell me they didn't like it before I felt comfortable. And I played as a child. This is me as an adult. And you know, and then you just get lost in the play, and you lose all sense of time.
Yes.
And that's where we have to get kids and adults again.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that experience, I mean, I did it in the early 90s, and I still remember it all. And they kept their backs to us. They didn't talk.
That's awesome.
The music was playing, was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so what are the 2 or 3 things you'd like to leave people with so that they stop hovering?
You know what? I just was realizing when you were talking and your face was lighting up, remembering that play experience and how much fun it is, that's one of the biggest benefits. Actually, I think I opened up a little bit with this, the idea that I was so much happier and my kids were so much happier when I stopped trying to help them.
Uh-huh.
And the comments that I'll get from parents after a free play session out in the woods is, I've never seen my kids play so well together, you know, if they're siblings.
Mhm.
Or, oh my gosh, I haven't been this relaxed in so long, because they've been given the permission to stop hovering and to just relax and attend to their needs and play if they want. Their kids are getting that chance. They're
Mhm.
getting to do it together in a way. Maybe they're not playing directly, but you know, they can see each other.
Mhm.
And there are very few spaces where these days where families can be pursuing things in parallel.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that everyone comes away so refreshed at the end. You
Mhm.
know, it's not like after a sports game or after a really exciting event when you're kind of all frazzled and worn out. Everybody's just so regulated.
And they've had a break, right? They haven't had to be parents.
Yes.
They haven't needed to worry about judgment.
Yes.
And they've been able to actually do some things with materials that maybe they were interested in doing with. So, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, Megan, well, we have to have you back, but I'm going to close this out. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.